Let's dive into how stress, nutrition, and physical activity can shape mental well-being, specifically, the effects on depression. When we experience something stressful, the amygdala is the first to react. It detects the threat and immediately sends a signal to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus then activates the sympathetic nervous system, triggering the classic fight or flight response. This system works really well for acute stress. But if this pathway stays turned on for too long, it becomes chronic stress, and that constant activation stops being helpful and starts becoming harmful for the body and the brain. Stress also activates the HPA axis, which leads to the release of cortisol. Cortisol boosts energy and focus, helping us handle short-term challenges and survive immediate stress. When someone's dealing with depression, a lot of what they feel comes from changes in their brain's chemistry. Serotonin is the one that helps keep our mood steady and helps us sleep and eat normally, so when it's low, people can feel really down or out of rhythm. Dopamine is tied to motivation and enjoyment, so things that used to feel exciting or rewarding just don't. And norepinephrine affects energy and alertness, so when it's off, people might feel tired, foggy, or easily overwhelmed. All of these together shape what depression feels like. When inflammation goes up in the body, it releases a lot of free radicals, basically unstable molecules that can damage cells. Over time, too much of this can actually harm brain cells, especially in areas that control mood and motivation. That's why inflammation can lead to shifts in mood, behavior, and even energy levels. And when you mix stress with inflammation, it can create a cycle. Stress triggers inflammation, inflammation affects the brain, and that makes stress and depression harder to break out of. It becomes a loop that keeps depression going. The next factor is nutrition. Nutrition influences mental health through 6 key areas: nutrigenomics, blood sugar, sugars, fats, the gut-brain axis, and neurotransmitters. Nutrigenomics shows us that diet can turn genes on or off. Nutrients affect inflammation, metabolism, and brain function. Poor diets increase inflammation linked to depression, while prenatal nutritional stress can raise mental health risks in children. The good news, epigenetic changes can be improved with folate, omega-3s, flavonoids, and vitamin D. Blood sugar regulation is also critical. The pancreas controls blood sugar through insulin and glucagon. Large swings cause fatigue, irritability, and poor focus. Insulin resistance leads to chronic inflammation, disrupting brain chemistry and mood. Both low and highly variable blood sugar increase stress and the risk of depression. Simple sugars spike blood sugar and insulin rapidly. Repeated spikes cause inflammation, oxidative stress, and harm neurons. Excess sugar can weaken the blood-brain barrier and impair brain glucose use, contributing to mood disorders. Fats have different effects on the brain. Omega-6 fats increase inflammation linked to anxiety and depression, while omega-3s like EPA and DHA are anti-inflammatory and support neuron structure. DHA is crucial for myelin and signaling, and trans fats, in contrast, harm brain health. The gut-brain axis connects digestion to mood. Poor nutrition and stress disrupt gut flora, raising inflammation that affects the brain. Fiber and omega-3s protect the gut barrier, reduce inflammation, and support healthy gut-brain communication. Finally, neurotransmitters rely on healthy neurons and nutrients like DHA, iron, zinc, and B12. Chronic inflammation from high sugar and excess omega-6 damages neurons and disrupts signaling. Omega-3s support dopamine function and protect brain cells. It's important to understand that depression is not just a mental condition. It shows up physically throughout the entire body. Long-term stress, chronic inflammation, and even substance use can actually change how the brain and body communicate. Over time, these stressors can disrupt energy balance and interfere with healthy brain function. Exercise, on the other hand, can create positive changes at the genetic level. It doesn't change our DNA itself, but it affects how genes are expressed through epigenetic modifications, basically opening or closing certain genetic pathways that help the body function more efficiently. Depression also impacts the autonomic nervous system, which controls things like heart rate and stress responses. We often see elevated heart rate, reduced heart rate variability, and a higher risk of cardiac issues in people experiencing depression. So overall, the mind and body are deeply connected, and depression affects both sides of that system. Next, let's look at how exercise specifically helps the body through HDL. Exercise increases HDL, which is the good cholesterol, and helps lower LDL, the bad cholesterol. This shift is important because HDL helps fight inflammation, decreases oxidative stress, and improves circulation, meaning more oxygen and energy reach the brain. People who live more sedentary lifestyles tend to have lower HDL and higher LDL, which contributes to inflammation and reduced energy levels. But research also shows that it's not just the amount of HDL that matters, the quality and function of HDL improve most through aerobic exercise. So overall, movement doesn't just make us physically healthier, it also improves the body's internal chemistry in ways that directly support mental well-being. Moving on to neurotransmitters and mood, depression is strongly connected to imbalances in chemicals like serotonin and dopamine. When these levels are low, people often experience reduced motivation, more negative thinking, and an inability to feel pleasure, what we call anhedonia. Exercise helps correct some of these imbalances. During physical activity, the body releases endorphins, which act as natural mood boosters. Endorphins also help strengthen the release of serotonin and dopamine, improving mood and motivation. Exercise may also help stabilize the HPA axis, the system that controls the body's response to stress. When this system is dysregulated, which often happens in depression, people can become more sensitive to stress. Regular movement helps restore balance and reduces the impact of daily stressors. Lastly, we have BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF acts like fertilizer for the brain. It strengthens connections between neurons and helps create new ones. This includes connections involving endorphins, serotonin, and dopamine. Higher levels of BDNF support neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, which means the brain becomes better at adapting, learning, and recovering from stress. This leads to improved mood, better cognitive function, and greater resilience. So overall, BDNF is one of the key biological reasons why exercise has such a powerful effect on mental health. In summary, what we see is that depression is shaped by a whole interconnected system. Stress, nutrition, and physical activity all play a part. Taken together, all of this shows that depression isn't caused by just one factor. Our mental well-being really depends on how these physiological, behavioral, and lifestyle factors interact. Understanding that whole picture helps us see why a mind-body approach is so important. Thank you for listening.